The rain poured heavily that evening, blurring the streetlights outside my own house, the one I had built brick by brick 40 years ago. I stood by the door, my trembling hand gripping the knob, suitcase by my feet, as my son's voice echoed through the hall. "Dad, I said leave!" Those words hit me harder than any storm ever could. My son, Daniel, the boy I'd once carried on my shoulders, the same one who used to cling to my leg, crying not to go to school, now glared at me like a stranger. His wife, Amanda, stood behind him, arms folded, satisfaction glinting in her eyes. "Don't make this harder, Mr. Miller," she said coldly. "It's better for everyone if you go." Mr. Miller. That's what she called me now. Not Dad. Not Father. Just Mr. Miller. I looked around one last time, at the framed family photos on the wall, the smell of roast beef still hanging in the air, the faint ticking of the clock I'd bought when Daniel was born. Everything was familiar, yet it suddenly felt like a museum of memories I no longer belonged to. I picked up my suitcase and stepped outside, the rain soaking through my coat. I didn't say a word, but inside, my heart whispered, "You'll regret this one day, son." I walked down the driveway slowly, each drop of rain washing away another piece of pride. At 72, where was I supposed to go? My wife, God bless her soul, had passed away 5 years ago. She'd warned me back then, "John, that woman will turn your son against you one day." I didn't believe her. I thought Amanda just needed time. I was wrong. For months, Amanda had been finding reasons to push me aside. First, she said I was in the way when they remodeled the kitchen. Then, she said, I made the house look gloomy when her friends visited. But the final straw came last week when she accused me of interfering with how they raised my grandson, Ben. All I'd done was help the boy with his homework. That night, Daniel told me it was best if I found someplace quieter, a polite way of saying, "Get out of our lives." I rented a small room above an old cafe downtown. Nothing fancy, just a bed, a chair, and a window that overlooked the street. The cafe owner, Margaret, a kind widow, often brought me tea and apple pie in the evenings. "You're too quiet, John," she'd say. "A man with your stories shouldn't sit alone." I smiled faintly. "Sometimes silence says more than words, Margaret. But when I was alone, I couldn't stop thinking about Ben, my 8-year-old grandson. The way he used to run into my arms after school, the drawings he made for me, the way he called me Grandpa Johnny. I missed that little boy more than anything. One evening, as I sipped my tea, I looked at the small wooden box I'd taken with me when I left. Daniel hadn't noticed it missing. Inside it were the house papers. The property deed was still in my name. I had never transferred ownership. I'd paid off that house long before Daniel even got married. And now, the house he and Amanda were living in was still legally mine. Weeks passed. I heard nothing from them, not a call, not a visit. But one afternoon, as I was reading the newspaper, a headline caught my eye. Local contractor to expand suburban estate. The article mentioned Daniel's construction company and its plan to use his own home as collateral for a massive loan. My heart skipped a beat. I knew what that meant. Without the title in his name, he couldn't take that loan. 2 days later, Daniel showed up at the cafe. He looked flustered, guilt and desperation fighting for space on his face. "Dad, we need to talk," he said. I looked up from my tea. "Now, you remember I exist?" "Please, this isn't the time," he said, sitting down. "The bank says the house deed is still under your name." "I thought you transferred it years ago." I set my cup down slowly. "You thought wrong." His jaw tightened. "I need that deed, Dad." The business depends on it. Amanda's furious. I leaned back in my chair. You threw me out of that house, Daniel. You said it wasn't my home anymore. So tell me, why would I hand over something you claim isn't mine? He went silent, staring at the table. For the first time, I saw the boy I once knew. Scared, ashamed, lost. Dad, I'm sorry, he muttered. Amanda, she was angry that day. I should have stood up for you. I looked at him long and hard. Apologies don't rebuild trust, son. They only start the foundation. A week later, I received a letter from Ben. The handwriting was messy, but I recognized the effort. Greater than, Dear Grandpa, Mom and Dad fight a lot. I miss you. Can I come visit your new home? I promise I'll bring cookies. Tears filled my eyes. That letter was worth more than any deed or apology. I called Daniel the next day. If you really want that house, come to my lawyer's office. We'll discuss it properly. When he arrived, Amanda wasn't with him. I could tell that was deliberate. My lawyer, Mr. Harris, laid out 2 sets of papers, one transferring the house title to Daniel and another creating a trust fund in Ben's name. I slid the pen toward Daniel. You can have the house, I said, but from this day forward, 20% of its value will go into Ben's education fund every year. Non-negotiable. Daniel stared at me, then nodded slowly. You're really doing this? I'm old, son, I said softly, but not foolish. I built that house to keep our family together. Maybe now it'll help build Ben's future instead. He signed. Then he stood, eyes glassy. Dad, thank you for everything. Months passed. I didn't move back, and I didn't want to. But something changed. Daniel began visiting me every Sunday with Ben. Sometimes we'd walk by the park. Sometimes we'd just sit at the cafe with apple pie. Amanda never came, and that was fine. One sunny afternoon, as Ben laughed and chased pigeons near the fountain, Daniel turned to me. You know, Dad, I think I finally understand what you meant about family being more than walls. I smiled faintly. Took you long enough? He laughed. Guess some lessons need time. I looked up at the sky, clear, blue, and calm. The storm had passed, both outside and within. I may have left my house that night with only a suitcase and some papers, but in the end, I took something far more powerful. My dignity, my wisdom, and the legacy of a father who never gave up on his son